And so it is. Let's talk about Mod 3. So these are the, I caught it this time. Hey! These are the standards for Mod 3. So by the end of this module, you should be able to validate data using strong params and model validations. You actually don't need to do this serializers one. I'm leaving it in there for right now because there's kind of neat stuff in it, but completely optional. Implement interactivity in applications using events. It's not optional. That's probably going to be a big part of Mod 3 for us, is wrapping our head around events. We're going to figure out how to do the rest of the fetches. We're going to discuss common programming topics. We can do lots of things now, but wrestling the things that we can do into words, very difficult, different kind of thing. So we're going to spend some time on that. These two are also optional, but we're definitely going to talk about them next week. We're talking about programming paradigms, functional programming versus object-oriented programming. And then the last thing we do in this module is auth. So again, serializers, OOP, and FP, those are optional. If you are not very strong in any of those at the end of Mod 3, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, neither should you. So if you really want to focus a lot of time on events, these fetches, programming topics, auth. If you're solid at on all of those at the end of Mod 3, I'd say you're going to be in mighty fine shape for Mod 4. So Mod 3 is an interesting one. There is no like regular Flatiron equivalent to this. A lot of the stuff that you guys did in Mod 2 is like regular Flatiron Mod 3. So what we do in this Mod 3 is it's kind of like a Mod 2 Part 2. We're going to do basically all of the same things we did in Mod 2. We're just going a level deeper on all of them. And this is actually my favorite mod in the whole program. There's a lot of like cool experimentation that happens here. So if you've been dying to like learn a little bit of Node, this is a pretty good mod for it. If you've been wanting to like, I don't know, just play Go, some other technology, something like that. Lots of that happens in this mod. Now, it's not an open mod. You still are accountable for being able to do all of these things. But there's a pretty good chance that you'll have some breathing room in this. Some other things that have happened historically in Mod 3 is it can be really easy to get exhausted. This mod has the least structure of any of the mods, except maybe Capstones. Mod 4, we go back to like Learn Labs and like a little bit more structure. This one is as loosey-goosey as we get. So for some people, that can like be very fatiguing. So you might want to make a plan for yourself, how you plan to attack any given day, to give yourself some rails if you need them. But that is a thing that happens every once in a while. Code challenge for this is not something I would spend a whole lot of energy worrying about. I would venture that there are probably at least some of you who could pass the Mod 3 code challenge right now. It's not all that different than the Mod 2 code challenge, honestly. You're going to have to add resources to something. You're going to have to read from an API and make things show up on the screen. You're going to have to do some DOM manipulation. It's all the same things. The biggest difference is going to be that you're using events and we're using different kinds of fetches instead of using method override. But that's kind of it. Otherwise, it's more or less the same code challenge. There's no auth. There's none of the like heady academic stuff. None of that's on the code challenge. So like we still get lots of people that don't pass the first go. But again, probably not something you should lose a lot of sleep over. I'd say if you got to this point, it's probably one of the easier code challenges. That's my take on it. Something you might want to pay special attention to is in this common programming topics one, the assessment for that is something called Talking Code. This is a real good one. So I have a list of questions here. A lot of these are pretty common interviewing questions. And so you should be able to, by the end of this mod, at least give a halfway shitty answer to like most of these. And if you'd like to see an example answer for those, why, I got your back. It's right here. These were my answers to these questions. So we have some exercises we can do on this. I think I gave instructions for like how you can drill it with partners and stuff. But a lot of schools will do this kind of stuff first, like at the very beginning of the program. We're building up vocabulary and all that kind of stuff. But to Lynn's point this morning, it's a really terrible way to learn anything. So we've been doing stuff for a while, wrestling it into words, completely different thing. And we're about ready for some of that now. Cool. That's mod 3. Ask me some questions.
I was wondering, so like for the code challenge and stuff, will we be doing a back end? Because I was thinking about branching off from Rails, but I wasn't sure whether to kind of wait until after the code challenge to start that, or whether it would be worth just focusing, or I don't know.
There is no Rails in the code challenge.
Cool.
Is there any other languages you'd recommend us trying to dive into?
Node is probably worth spending some time with. It's not a different language. It's still just JavaScript. It's the same JavaScript you write on the front end. You're just writing it for servers instead. The Node platform has some like differences with browser JavaScript. For example, there's no document. So you can't do document.querySelector, document.createElement. Why would we? There's no document on the server. There's a couple others like window. There's no window on the server, so we don't have a window object. We do have some things like that take the place of those, like the process object that will let you work with the file system. That's a thing you can't do with browser JavaScript. So you can read files and write files and like do some of that sort of stuff. So like no one's ever regretted learning Node. If in your courage times and stuff, if like, I don't know, Python is kind of sang your heart song a little bit, like might be a good time to build up some Django chops or something like that. Go is really hot right now. Go will also probably make you pretty good at the kinds of like whiteboarding puzzles that you get, because it's Go is like a no abstractions language. You don't have map, filter, reduce in there. You have if statements and you have for loops, and that's it. That's all you have in the language. And so without any of those abstractions, you get pretty good at writing low-level code. But like, don't overthink it. Don't like try to metagame like, what are the jobs looking for and stuff. Do something that like seems interesting to you, or at least like solves an interesting problem. So like if you're like a hardcore games person, like, I don't know, maybe you pick up Unity 3D. If like you really want like a mega, like the super structured corporate kinds of things, like maybe playing around with .NET a little bit is good investment of your time. Lots of options. Or like if you don't want to branch out at all and just do regular like standards here, there's like absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Is there a Go web framework anyone uses, or is that more just for?
There is, and it's called, I think Revel is the one that everyone uses. Yeah, that looks right. What else? I've also had people play around with like Raspberry Pi, robots, that kind of stuff during this mod, electronics.
Do we do any jQuery?
Yes. Ask me next week. We can do some jQuery. JQ is like, was the predecessor to like all of this stuff. Before we had React, before we had Vue, before we had Angular, before we had like JavaScript that ran the same in different browsers. We had jQuery. So you'll still see that in like job applications and stuff, but it's more or less dead. And the reason it's dead is because it won. All the things that jQuery used to do are just part of JavaScript now. Like one of the coolest things that it had was this thing called Sizzle, which would allow you to write a CSS selector and get any matching elements for it. You know, like document query selector and query selector all, except we didn't have those query selector and query selector all until like a couple years ago. And so before that, we used jQuery Sizzle. But yeah, happy to talk about it. I was there. I lived through that.
So did EC 2015 sort of incorporate everything that was in jQuery?
Just about everything that was worthwhile out of jQuery was in ES 2015. What else?
Where's a good place to be like at the end of the week? And is it too early to jump into React?
By the end of the week, if you're through this stuff, if you're really solid with events and fetch by the end of the week, that's a mighty fine place to be. If you're like, yeah, most of the way there with fetch, but you're solid on events, like, I'll take that. Is it too early for React? Yes. You will not be happy, I think, if you're palling around with React too much this week or probably next week too. If you want to play around with it a little bit during like project week or something, that's probably about right. But you'll get plenty of time with React. You'll get 6 uninterrupted weeks of just all the React you can take. But yeah, if I could have one thing that you just rock at by the end of this mod, events. What else?
Totally off topic, but are we going to get a schedule today? I haven't seen one come out yet.
You're looking at it. This
Okay.
is the last thing on the schedule. So what I would do with the rest of your day is try to get this strong params and model validations thing knocked out. So we've got some resources for you here. There's not that much to it. So if you can get this done and over with, like that would be a very good use of your Monday. So we can just start talking about events as soon as possible.
Do you have any suggestions for exploring a new interest?
Sorry, say that again?
Like trying to find a new interest?
Oh, I would like, so one of the ways that I stay on top of a lot of this stuff is join a bunch of channels in Denver Devs. See what they talk about. What kinds of problems do they have? What sorts of things are they excited about? What are the announcements for, various different languages and frameworks and stuff? And this sounds like a silly thing. It's super not. What do you like the people that are working on it? Because these different tools attract different kinds of people. And so like if you really like working with Go, but you can't fucking stand working with other Go developers, oof, you're really not going to enjoy working with that technology very much because Go developers are like of a certain variety. And so like, I don't think it's ridiculous at all to like choose technologies by like which people they attract. So like that's join some channels in Denver Devs and like just kind of keep your ears high for do these kind of seem like my tribe? What do they like about the framework? And you can just ask them that too. You can go into the Python channel and be like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about getting started with Python. What do you guys like about it? It's a very reasonable question to ask on one of those channels.
Kyle, I looked up languages that would work well with maps, like GIS stuff, and it said that Java is probably one of the best. Would you agree with that?
Not especially. Java is like a fine language to learn for lots of other reasons, but I can't think of a language that is too fussy about that. The data storage on it, different thing. But hey, that's Postgres. Postgres is probably the strongest database system for GIS stuff because it has a native lat-long coordinates column type. And then past that, it's a lot of it is just based on the strength of the libraries. And so there's really good mapping libraries in just about any language.
So would now be a good time to get into Postgres?
Oh yeah, if you want to go a little bit deeper with Postgres than we go in the program, yeah, that'd be dope. Because yeah, there's like Postgres has some kind of like function that you can use where you can even at the query level do some like distance calculations and stuff based on lat-long coordinates. So yeah, if you wanted to like dig a little bit deeper on that, that'd be cool.
All right, cool, thanks.
Do you have any podcasts you'd suggest checking out?
Yes, there's one called Syntax by Scott Tolensky and Wes Boss. That's probably the biggest programming podcast. Scott Tolensky's local also. And then if you're like interested in design and like general tech and stuff, I hosted a podcast called Sprint for 3 years. All the archives of that are online. We did 157 episodes. And then, yeah, those would be my 2 recommendations. You want something more codey? Check out Syntax. You want something a little more general tech, trends, and designy? Sprint. What else?
There was recently a JavaScript conference.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any good takeaways from that? Are there any videos we should watch?
I don't know which one it was. Was it JSConf?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know there was some sort of like JavaScript conference. I think it was last Friday, or Thursday or Friday, but I really don't know.
So I couldn't comment one way or the other, but I can say that like you can go back through, like most conferences will have old videos of theirs posted online, including my conference. So if you go to developdenver.org, might be down at the bottom. God, where are our videos? Maybe you have to go like right to YouTube. Oh no, I'll bet it's on here. Yeah. So if you go to developdenver.org and on this hamburger menu, you go to the thing that looks like a video icon. Whoop! That shouldn't be. Whoop!
Whoop.
They change it? Or maybe just Google it. There we go. Hey, there's Scott Tolensky right now. He's the syntax guy. Hey, there's a video of me on a panel talking about being a dev manager. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of conference videos from everything from like engineering management kind of stuff to designing kind of stuff to DevOps kind of stuff by people in your very own local community. So like, yeah, if you wanted to like learn how to design APIs that don't piss people off, here's old Brian Schiller talking about how to make your API design not suck.
And once we have it created, we can add a password.
God, these videos were gorgeous. So expensive. So fucking expensive. But they did turn out really well. What else?
Do you have any recommendations outside of LearnCo for like practicing eventing stuff or tutorials or something like that?
The MDN resources are always pretty good. we go MDN events. So this is a reference. I'd maybe start with the guides instead. Introduction to events. There we go. Yeah, the Mozilla stuff is very good. What else?
Kyle, is web scraping, to get data, is that effective?
Depends. It's brittle because you're depending on them to not change the format of their site, and like they don't tell the people who are scraping their site, oh, by the way, we have a big new design coming out today, and we did it in a way that not even only gonna have to just change your selectors you're using for scraping, you're gonna have to like redesign your entire scraping strategy because now it's a single page app. Now the routing is different, that kind of stuff. So like that's the danger of something like that. If it's a one-time thing, that tends to work a lot better. Like I need one time to scrape all of the data off of this site. Those tend to be very effective actually. The challenge with that still is you still need to clean the data. You'll get shit back that has like spaces on the sides of it, or like maybe you're also like at risk of whatever data modeling problems they had, you're gonna have the exact same ones. So if they have two different, the same dog with the name spelled slightly differently in two different places, well, guess what? Now you have that problem too. Also, they're not just going to publish their schema to you. So if you do want to like ingest this into some sort of database, you need to kind of retroactively figure out what the schema is. But there's totally stuff that like, yes, like scraping is a real thing.
How sketchy is it to use for one of our projects? Is it too hard to
People do it all the time.
It'll work?
Keep in mind that depending on who you're scraping, like they might not like it much. So the concern there is like serving people a web page like takes resources that cost money.
Yeah.
And so you generally don't mind it so much if that's your customers or your potential customers. If it's somebody who just wants to steal all your data for their own project, maybe they get a little bit fussier with it. So there's like some, I would not be surprised if you like bump across some like scraping protections that keep you from doing it. But honestly, for a student project, probably not that big a deal.
Thanks.
Python's a pretty good language for scraping stuff, FYI. What else?
Can you give us a little bit of information about if there are any expectations for our Mod 3 project or anything that needs to be included with them or what it should look like, or like a basic overview?
Sure. Make a web app. That's honestly it. This, other than Mod 1 project, that's the requirement for, like, that's the conversation Damon's having with the capstone students right now. Make a web app. Use the things that you've learned. There's no auth as a requirement. Lots of people end up doing auth because we'll have just talked about it. I would say needs to have a front end, needs to have a back end. I don't care which technologies you use for either. Yeah, there's your Mod 3 project requirements.
Thank you.
What else? Cool. For the rest of the day, get real solid on strong params and model validations. Serializers are optional. OOP and FP are optional. Everything else, you're accountable for. But enjoy this mod. This is a fun fucking mod. All the structure stuff comes back in 3 weeks. Enjoy some freedom. So if there's nothing else, thank you very much.